Good morning, students. In today's class, we are going to discuss Act 1, Part 1 of O'Neill's play, Long Day's Journey into Night. And this particular play, it starts at 8:30 a.m. on an August day in 1912. In our previous classes, I have already told you that the entire play takes place during one long day. A lot of things happen during this particular day, and the day never seems to end. And you also know that this particular play is also highly autobiographical. In fact, O'Neill had made a pact with his wife at the time of his death that this play would be published only after 45 years of his demise. But she chose to publish it a little earlier. So this particular act, it starts at 8:30 a.m. on an August day in 1912. The location is the main room or the living room of the tyrant's summer Connecticut home. The entire play takes place in this particular place, that is the living room of the tyrant family. In Act 1, we see James, the father, and Mary, the mother, enter the room after their breakfast. They have a bit of a conversation and they seem to enjoy each other's company, though they have a friendly bickering between them. O'Neill describes Mary, the mother, as 54 years old but with a fairly youthful figure. O'Neill notes that she has an innate unworldly innocence and a shy convent girl youthfulness. The father, James, is 65 years old, but he looks a decade younger. From the conversation that ensued between the husband and the wife, we learn that Mary has recently returned from treatment at a sanatorium for her morphine addiction. In Act 1's opening, we also learn that the younger son Edmund, who actually stands for O'Neill, has been away traveling and that recently his health has been deteriorating. Now, Jamie and Edmund, their sons, enter, and the elder son James and the father Tyrone starts fighting with each other. In fact, we can see that the father and the elder son can't resist fighting with each other. They always find a reason to fight with each other. The father also calls his younger son Edmund a socialist because of some of the views that he expresses in their conversation, and the father also calls him an anarchist in a derogatory manner. And Edmund, sick of being criticized, goes upstairs coughing. What we learn from this particular scene is that the father and the sons are always at loggerheads with each other. Their talk always ends in mutual fighting. Now, the mother Mary is worried but refuses to hear talk that Edmund might be truly sick. In fact, the mother Mary knows that her elder, her younger son Edmund is sick, but she refuses to accept the fact that Edmund might have some serious illness. Though she admits that Edmund is sick and she is very much worried about Edmund's health, she refuses to admit to the fact that Edmund might be actually suffering from something fatal. With Mary gone to the kitchen to supervise the housemaid, the elder son Jamie and the father Tyrone talk frankly about younger son Edmund. Edmund might have consumption, that is tuberculosis. So, once the mother goes to the kitchen, the father and the elder son talks about the health condition of the younger son, Edmund. They both suspect that Edmund has tuberculosis, and in fact, their doubt comes to be true. The two men, the father and the elder son, fight bitterly, going through a series of arguments that we will hear many times before the end of the play. The father tyrant accuses the elder son of being without direction, and the son accuses his father of being miserly. The elder son Jamie blames their mother Mary's morphine addiction on his father's bargain hunting and the consequent shoddy medical care. In fact, Mary became addicted to morphine after giving birth to Edmund. She suffered from postnatal problems, but the father James was not ready to consult a good doctor because he never wanted to lose money. And both the sons believe that Mary, their mother, became addicted to morphine because of their father's stinginess. The father, in fact, spends a lot of money on real estate and bargain hunting. Now, during their conversation, the younger son Edmund again comes down and he tries to talk to his mother Mary. Edmund tries to talk frankly about Mary's problems with morphine because he feels that she should confront her past in order to lead a better life. But Mary tries to avoid this conversation about her morphine addiction, probably because of the fact that she has secretly started using morphine again. Mary complains about the father tyrant's miserliness and how, because of it, she has never had a real home. Mary feels that she has never had a real home in her entire life. The father tyrant was into acting and he used to take the entire family with him on his plays productions. So they never had a stable home, and the home that they possess now itself is very unartistically arranged because the father tyrant is alien to the concept of a particular home that they can call their own. He is not concerned about the concept of home, whereas the mother Mary is always pining for a home, a beautiful home that she can call her own. The younger son Edmund goes out to the lawn to lie in the shade while the father and the elder son work, and the mother Mary is left alone at home. Now, I would give you a quick analysis of the Act 1. O'Neill's opening stage directions in this act immediately give the audience some clues as to what the Tyrant family is like. The bookshelves, for example, in the Tyrant home, show that the family is both educated and worldly. There are books by a wide range of famous European authors. The Irish literature on the bookshelf clues us into the family's pride in its Irish heritage. James and Mary migrated to America from Ireland, and they are very proud of their Irish heritage. O'Neill uses stage directions more than many other playwrights to provide insight into what the characters ought to look like and what their central interests are. For example, Mary is described as a decaying yet still retains a youthfulness she has never lost. She is in a transition period in her life. That is, she is in a stage of transition from her youthfulness to adulthood. She is getting aged. Now, the father tyrant does not seem to be affected physically by the passage of time. He maintains the digestion of a 25-year-old. That is what O'Neill says. So, O'Neill uses stage directions more than many other playwrights to provide insight into what the characters look like and their central interest. It is also important to note that O'Neill does not condemn any one of these characters more than any other. All these characters have severe faults of their own, and O'Neill never tries to condemn any of them.